You're such a bad husband. Getting frisky on your wedding day?
Because this is the best way to calm my nerves.
The day of my wedding. When I peeked into the dressing room, Kevin and Sarah were tangled up, wearing absolutely nothing.
This is such a pain. Who cares about Anna's show-off wedding?
You're so mean. What kind of the groom says that?
I am not the star of today's wedding.
And let's be honest, Anna doesn't exactly look like a star either. No matter how fancy she gets, a plain girl is a plain girl. She's just a walking embarrassment.
I was the only one caught up in the excitement of this wedding. My heart, which had been racing just moments ago, suddenly fell silent. Sarah looks way more fitting in this scandalous state than in her white dress. Fine. Let's make them today's real stars. I'm Anna Miller, 32 years old. After dating Kevin for a year after meeting him at a party, he finally proposed to me. Not in some dreamy scenario with a diamond engagement ring at a fancy restaurant, just our usual diner. His name is Kevin. We've always had an easygoing relationship. We toasted with our beers as he said, "Here's to our future." Though he proposed, we didn't rush into marriage. He respected my wish for a simple, small wedding, and we scheduled it for a year later. Going to different bridal fairs at venues became fresh and exciting dates. Every time someone called us, the bride and groom, it felt ticklish, and we'd exchange little smiles. I'd heard this before, but weddings really don't just happen overnight.
Yeah, I thought a year away sounded like forever, but it actually makes sense.
Right. And can you believe those price tags are actually real? There was a reason the wedding was set a year out. Okay, here's this month's payment. Thanks.
Got it. All set.
I handed $800 to Kevin. Kevin quickly counted the bills and tucked the money into his pocket. This was part of the wedding fund for a year later. We each put in $800 per month, planning to save about $20,000 over a year. I left the management to Kevin. Although $800 a month was a significant amount, we could do it since we both lived with our parents. So, by the way, which venue do you think looks good?
Isn't your mom's place the best option?
Actually, my mom works at a wedding venue. I was worried Kevin might feel uncomfortable with it being her workplace, but he was the one who insisted.
The venue's fantastic, and honestly, getting some perks because it's family is a huge help.
That was very like Kevin, practical and level-headed. Our wedding preparations were progressing smoothly. We had already introduced our parents to each other. Before meeting with the venue staff, we'd started visiting each other's homes more often to discuss details. Sure, we could have met at a cafe, but Kevin's mom, Betty, had welcomed me warmly and treated me like family. She always said, "Feel free to come by any time," so I often visited his parents' house.
Wow, they have dessert buffets these days. Oh no, I can't eat much in this formal dress.
Mom, come on, it's a wedding. You can't be the groom's mom stuffing herself at the buffet.
You're right, too bad.
We always had fun conversations like this. However, the atmosphere changed drastically when someone unexpected showed up.
No way. Kevin's really getting married. That's hilarious.
While I was visiting as usual, she suddenly showed up. Without introducing herself, she pointed at me and laughed. Wait, this is his fiancée?
Well, I guess someone like her is about what Kevin could realistically get.
She was a young woman with soft, bouncy curls and glossy lips, a cute and bubbly type. Meanwhile, I was just wearing a hoodie with barely any makeup, as I wasn't planning to go anywhere special. I felt a wave of anger at her words, but I wasn't dressed confidently enough to talk back. Frustrated, I bit my lip and looked at Kevin for help. Kevin awkwardly scratched his head.
Hey, Sarah, that's rude, you know.
Then Kevin introduced her. She was his cousin Sarah. Despite being 5 years younger than Kevin, Sarah acted like she was above him.
Well, Kevin, you're over 30, and you can't afford to be picky anymore. I guess someone like this is realistic.
Kevin just chuckled sheepishly. Kevin's parents scolded Sarah for her rude remarks. In my heart, I was already dreading having this unpleasant person at the wedding. I forced a polite smile. Though Sarah hadn't stayed long, Betty gently urged him to walk her back home. Sarah left the house, looking dissatisfied. After Kevin and Sarah were gone, his parents apologized to me.
We're so sorry, Anna. Sarah speaks without thinking. Kevin has always been like her little sidekick since they were kids, so maybe she feels bitter about losing him to you.
A sidekick to a girl 5 years younger and undeniably cute? Is the reason Kevin didn't stand up for me because he can't defy his leader? How ridiculous for a grown man. Don't worry about it at all, I replied cheerfully, making sure my in-laws couldn't sense the dark thoughts swirling inside me. The following weekend, on the day of our wedding venue meeting, a big issue arose.
Sorry to keep you waiting. What's your name again? Oh, right, Anna. You're so plain I couldn't spot you.
Sarah showed up at the spot where I was supposed to meet Kevin.
I mean, come on. I've got way better taste than Anna. A wedding should be flashy, you know?
Leaving me bewildered and standing there awkwardly, Sarah and Kevin leaned in close like a cozy couple. As if it were the most natural thing, Sarah tagged along to the wedding planning meeting.
Hey, Kevin, don't you think these flowers look great?
Yeah, they do.
2 women sitting on either side of Kevin. One woman, full of opinions and excitement, wasn't even supposed to be there. And the real bride, me, sat there with a gloomy face. What kind of scene is this? The wedding planner gave Sarah vague smiles and nodded, trying to keep things pleasant. She turned to me with, "And as for you, the bride." But her voice was drowned out by Sarah's enthusiastic chatter. After a while, Sarah glanced between me and the planner and let out a chuckle.
Look, this isn't a funeral. Why is the vibe in this corner so depressing? If you're not feeling it, Anna, you might as well just go home.
I must have looked completely dumbfounded. My mouth hung open and I couldn't close it. Sarah's actions were so bizarre I started wondering if she was from another planet.
It was Anna who wanted the wedding in the first place. So why is she dumping all the details on Sarah? She probably just wanted to wear a dress and get all the attention.
Kevin was an alien too. How did this man, who until recently seemed like a normal person, suddenly become unrecognizable?
It's fine. I love planning events. I host barbecues and Christmas parties with my friends all the time. Leave the wedding planning to me.
You're the best, Sarah. I knew I could count on you.
Of course.
At this rate, my wedding was going to become Sarah's. No, this can't happen. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The more panicked I became, the tighter my throat felt. Kevin and Sarah burst into laughter together.
Kevin,
A voice came from behind us. Calm and deliberate, not loud, but it cut through the air clearly. Kevin and Sarah's laughter came to an abrupt stop. When I turned around, my mom was there.
Kevin, who is this young lady? She almost looks like the bride.
Kevin immediately pushed Sarah away. He dramatically wrapped his arm around mine and gave my mom a smile.
Excuse me, but you're disturbing the other couples here. Could you please keep it down a little more?
Oh, well, sorry.
Thank you. Now your guest will be leaving, right?
What? Yeah.
My mom's smile was gentle, but her presence was incredibly authoritative. She firmly sent Sarah on her way. That night, my mom sighed in disbelief as she expressed her concern.
Kevin seemed like such a responsible guy. Why would he bring a woman who looks like a mistress to a wedding planning meeting?
Kevin's just her sidekick.
Her sidekick?
I explained that Sarah was his cousin and described their dynamic. My mom shrugged.
Seriously? What are they, elementary school kids?
Having worked in the wedding industry for years, my mom knew that even seemingly perfect weddings often had drama behind the scenes. Of course, the bride and groom are the main focus of the wedding, but sometimes family members try to take over and make it about themselves.
Whether she's a cousin or some kind of leader, this wedding belongs to you and Kevin.
Since that day, Sarah didn't show up again. Thanks to that, our planning sessions went smoothly, but Kevin looked bored. No matter what I asked, he only replied, "Sounds good." Eventually, even when choosing his tuxedo, he said, "Whatever you like, Anna." Not only during the meetings, but also in everyday life, Kevin's attitude toward me became distant. Maybe the reality of marriage was sinking in, making him feel anxious. Maybe we were both just experiencing pre-wedding jitters. My mom once told me, a lot of couples argue before the wedding. It's only natural because our lives were about to change drastically. We probably had to get over these little hills to truly become a married couple. After several arguments and reconciliations, a year flew by. Finally, our wedding day arrived.
Man, I'm nervous.
Kevin paced from one end of the bridal suite to the other. He'd practiced his groom's speech so many times that it was perfect. Even though I kept reassuring him, saying, "You've got this," he was still jittery. We both smiled wryly at each other. At that moment, the door swung open without a knock.
Hello. Where's the bride and groom?
My face froze instantly. It was Sarah.
Oh, there you are. You guys haven't done your makeup or changed yet. You're so plain, I almost didn't notice.
Sarah laughed as she spoke, wearing a pure white dress. Not just that, it was a mini dress that stopped above her knees, showing off her bare legs. If it were a little kid's outfit, it might have been cute, but for an adult, it was completely inappropriate. She said she arrived early to get her hair done at the venue. Even so, she was way too early. It made me suspicious. Did she come just to mess with us?
Hey, isn't my dress cute? I bet I look more like the bride than you.
I didn't want to let her ruin this special day. I forced a dry laugh and tried to brush it off. Soon, it was time for my hair and makeup. The staff gently asked Sarah to leave the room, and she did. I let out a relieved breath and sat down in front of the large mirror. But even as I got my makeup done, Kevin was nowhere to be seen. Since he'd been so nervous, I figured he was probably pacing around in the lobby. Once my hair and makeup were finished, I stepped out to look for him. It wasn't time for the guests to arrive yet, so only staff members were in the lobby. Maybe he's in the garden? The restroom? I thought as I walked down the hallway. When I reached the relatives' waiting room, I paused. The bride and groom's room was bright and entirely white. It was luxurious, with a bed and even a bathroom in the back. Kevin and I had joked before. When would we ever use this? We're not staying overnight. In contrast, the relatives' waiting room had a calm atmosphere, with brown tones throughout. Something about the relatives' room caught my attention, so I quietly opened the door. The first thing I noticed was the counter, where drinks for the guests would soon be placed. The room extended further, with a second section containing large, comfortable sofas. During our tour of the venue, Kevin had said,
I like this room better than the bridal suite. These huge sofas are comfy enough to sleep on.
Just as I thought, I heard a noise coming from the back. But it was strange. A soft, high-pitched sound, almost like a kitten's meow, echoed through the room. Then, the sofa creaked unnaturally. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst. Then I heard Sarah's voice through the thin wall.
You're such a bad husband. Getting frisky on your wedding day?
I didn't need to see to know what kind of indecent thing she was doing. However, the man with her must be someone I didn't know. I silently begged that it was.
This is the best way to relax.
Then I heard a voice I couldn't mistake for anyone else's. It was Kevin's voice. My legs gave out and I crumpled to the floor. In a daze, I peeked into the next room. There was no mistake. Kevin and Sarah were tangled together, completely undressed. Kevin buried his face in Sarah's chest and murmured, "One more time."
Oh, is that really okay? Should the groom be doing this right now?
My prep takes like 10 minutes. It's fine. I couldn't care less about Anna's braggy little wedding.
You're so mean. What kind of the groom says that?
I am not the star of today's wedding.
And let's be honest, Anna doesn't even look like one. No matter how much she dolls herself up, plain is plain. She's just a walking embarrassment.
Was I the only one caught up in the excitement of this wedding? The pounding of my heart suddenly quieted. As my mind cleared, I felt a wave of hatred toward the two of them, entwined without a care, still undressed. Sarah looked far more fitting in this scandalous state than in her white dress. Fine, if they want attention so badly, I'll make them today's stars. When I stepped out of the waiting room, my mom hurried toward me, her face pale. I will never forget them. When I said that firmly, My mom nodded resolutely. 20 minutes later,
What the?
Kevin was trying to force open the door to the relative's room. But there was no way it would open. I'd borrowed the key from my mom and locked them inside. I even added a support bar for good measure.
Hey, is anyone out there? The door won't open.
Kevin pounded on the door, calling for help. He had no clue what was happening outside. "What are you doing in there?" I called out to him.
Anna, the door won't open. Can you open it from the outside?
"You want me to open it?"
Oh yeah. Of course, hurry up.
He sounded irritated. I unlocked the door from the outside. The moment Kevin stepped out, he grabbed my shoulder.
Why didn't you open it sooner? Huh.
Kevin froze in place. Behind me stood all my relatives, his relatives, and even the wedding venue staff.
What's going on?
Sarah poked her head out, realizing the atmosphere had turned dire. She tried to play it off with a weak smile.
Hey, what's everyone doing here? So we were just looking around the venue, and someone accidentally locked the door on us. So weird, right?
She started offering excuses before anyone even asked. One of Kevin's relatives spoke up with a disgruntled tone.
The venue told us to rush over because something serious happened. And it turns out Kevin and Sarah were just locked in? What a stupid prank. We dropped everything to get here, and don't waste our time.
Other relatives chimed in.
Sarah, are you okay?
They even showed concern for her. Since I hadn't explained the full story to Kevin's relatives, it seemed like I was the one causing unnecessary drama. So, I decided to tell the truth. The truth is, Kevin and Sarah were having an affair in this room just a little while ago.
What?
Kevin, Sarah, and the relatives all stared wide-eyed. Kevin immediately reached out as if to grab me by the chest, but stopped midway, realizing everyone was watching. Instead, he awkwardly wrapped his arm around my shoulders and forced a grin.
What are you talking about? You're imagining things. Maybe you had a bad dream.
His mouth was smiling, but his eyes glared at me, screaming, "Keep your mouth shut." It felt like being stared down by a snake, but I kept my expression neutral and continued. It wasn't a misunderstanding. I saw it with my own eyes. That's why I locked them in.
Anna, come on. Don't lie like that.
Kevin's fake smile started to twitch. Seeing this, Sarah stepped in to smooth things over.
Anna, please stop. Look, everyone, Anna's always been super jealous. She's upset because Kevin and I get along well. Even though I was just helping with the wedding planning, she sent me away before. She's jealous of his cousin. That's so weird. She probably hates me because I'm cute. But to make up such a lie, that's just the worst.
Sarah's calm explanation made the relatives nod along. They began whispering while glancing at me. They were probably gossiping about how awful I was. Kevin's parents tried to calm things down, but no one was listening. No one would believe that a groom could be cheating at the wedding venue on the actual wedding day. To them, it was much more believable that the bride was making things up out of jealousy. Kevin's relatives looked at me with cold, piercing stares, like needles stabbing into my heart. Seeing this, Kevin became emboldened.
Come on, Anna. Apologize to everyone for lying and causing trouble.
At that moment, my mom stepped forward and apologized.
I apologize for calling everyone here earlier than expected.
I stood next to her, but I had no intention of giving the apology Kevin wanted. Everyone, thank you for coming to our wedding today. As a small token to make up for rushing you, we've prepared a special presentation. At my cue, the staff guided the relatives to the reception hall. Kevin and Sarah, looking confused, followed behind. Inside the hall, a giant screen had been lowered. Please enjoy the show. In the dim room, a loud, unmistakable moan echoed. At the same time, the giant screen lit up with a vivid video of Kevin and Sarah in their compromising state. Screams erupted from all around the room. Sarah stepped in front of the screen, yelling, "Stop it! Turn it off!" The scandalous scene only lasted a few seconds, but it had already become the highlight of the day. So, who's the liar here? I asked into the silent hall. Sarah, are you wearing that white dress because you think you're the bride? You said I didn't look like the main character, right? Well, if anyone looks like the star of the show, it's you. Look, everyone's eyes are on you. Today's main characters are you and Kevin. I clapped, but the entire room remained frozen in shock. Kevin's face turned bright red, and he grabbed me by the collar without hesitation.
You. How dare you?
The one who's being ridiculous is you, Kevin. My sharp tone made his grip loosen. He really was the loyal sidekick of a pretty girl. He couldn't stand up to anyone stronger. What an incredibly weak person he was. After taking a deep breath, I asked softly, "Let me ask you again. What were you and Sarah doing in the waiting room?" Kevin clenched his teeth.
This video, how, why?
There weren't any hidden cameras planted by the venue. The answer was simple. I recorded it on my phone.
What?
And I sent it to my mom. My mom waved her phone in the air. If I had confronted them alone, Sarah's manipulative charm might have made it easy for her to weasel out of it. So I secretly recorded them and immediately sent the video to my mom. My mom took swift action. Having worked at the venue for years, she had risen from planner to manager and had an exceptional ability to coordinate the staff. She quickly ordered them to lock Kevin inside, gather the relatives, and set up the video on the screen. Neither my mom nor I wanted to show the video publicly. It was our last resort. It was only to be used if Kevin and Sarah refused to confess.
You can't just record and humiliate us like this. You'll pay for this.
Kevin, with tears in his eyes, tried desperately to sound tough. Just then, Betty stepped forward and slapped him across the face.
Enough.
In fact, we had sent the video to his parents too. They never expected to see their son in such a disgraceful state on what was supposed to be his big day. I thought they might try to defend him. But instead, they said,
Let's gather the relatives and confront them in front of everyone.
That's how my mom and I decided to act. Kevin and Sarah were family. Because of that, Kevin's parents made the painful decision not to sweep this under the rug.
My mom betrayed me?
Kevin staggered backward. He clutched his chest like he was about to start hyperventilating.
You're the one who betrayed us, Kevin.
Betty shouted through tears. Kevin's sobs grew louder. Everyone frowned and looked down at him from a distance with contempt. Amid the chaos, the other main character was trying to quietly slip away from the crowd. But it was impossible for Sarah in her stark white dress to go unnoticed. She was immediately caught by a middle-aged relative nearby.
Let go of me. Don't touch me.
Sarah resisted, her head hanging low. The man holding her pleaded,
Tell me it's not true. You didn't cheat with Kevin, right? You love me, don't you?
Then another man, realizing the situation, shouted, So you were messing around with someone else too? Sarah kept her head down and didn't respond. It turned out Kevin wasn't her only affair partner. It was hard to believe she'd been involved with 3 of her own relatives. Kevin stopped crying and shouted at the men furiously.
I was special. I gave her $800 every month.
Sarah swayed on her feet before collapsing. It seemed Kevin had just said the one thing he should never have revealed. That confession opened the floodgates. The other 2 men admitted they'd also been giving Sarah money. In the end, Sarah's true goal was money. Kevin and the men, who moments ago were rivals for Sarah's affection, suddenly banded together.
You said I was the only one. You tricked me.
Sarah had become their common enemy. Surrounded by furious men closing in, Sarah's whole body trembled.
Help me.
To my surprise, Sarah's eyes locked with mine. Her relatives were all glaring at her with frightening expressions, so even her own parents didn't seem like an option for her to turn to. In this situation, she couldn't even meet their gaze. Attention seeker Sarah, everyone's watching you now. Aren't you happy? Sarah's face turned pale, her eyes rolled back, and she fainted. Kevin grabbed her limp arm and shouted,
Sarah, we're not done talking. You cheater.
I stepped forward and gently patted Kevin's shoulder. We're not done talking, cheater. Blaming his affair partner for cheating. It felt like some kind of comedy skit. Kevin really had no idea what kind of position he was in. The excitement drained from Kevin's face in an instant.
No, you've got it wrong. It wasn't an affair. I don't even like Sarah. I love you, Anna. It was more like visiting a professional. I was just paying Sarah.
I forced the biggest smile I could and nodded. Kevin's face relaxed slightly in relief. So, you paid Sarah, huh? With my money. Kevin kept smiling but tilted his head back and stared at the ceiling. The moment he admitted to giving Sarah $800 a month, I'd already figured it out. That amount was exactly what I'd been giving Kevin for our wedding savings. The money meant for our future together. The money to build our happiness had been used to satisfy his selfish desires.
Please forgive me.
Kevin looked up at me with teary eyes. I felt a sudden urge to stomp on his head, but decided against it. I didn't want to dirty my shoe. The wedding was officially canceled. Since most of the guests were relatives, they were sent home after the incident. Of course, my engagement to Kevin was also over. Thankfully, we hadn't registered the marriage yet.
Well, here.
Even though I wanted nothing more to do with him, Kevin came to see me, holding something.
Even though the wedding was canceled, we still have to pay the fees. Isn't that a scam? Can't you get your mom to do something?
He handed me a bill for about $20,000. It was the full amount due since it was already the wedding day, completely expected. We can use our joint savings to cover it, I said gently on purpose.
Well, most of the guests were relatives, so we were expecting to make a profit from the wedding gifts. I didn't think we'd need to save money.
So you spend it all on Sarah. To Sarah, Kevin was someone she'd never considered dating under normal circumstances. But knowing he was about to marry someone else probably made her crave the attention. Kevin had eventually admitted that Sarah had been the one to seduce him.
Are you really going to marry someone that plain? Your life's going to be so boring. If you at least had money, you could have fun with cute girls like me.
Those words had prompted him to pull out the $800 he had in his pocket and hand it to her. After that, their relationship, both financial and physical, continued.
Anna, you're the one who ruined the wedding. You should pay for it.
Fury bubbled up inside me, and I opened my mouth to retort. But before I could say anything, Kevin disappeared from my line of sight. To my surprise, Kevin was blown away by his dad and fell to the ground. Kevin's parents had apparently followed him because they'd become suspicious of his secret outings.
It was Kevin who ruined everything.
Betty shouted, voicing exactly how I felt. Kevin's parents apologized to me profusely. Kevin was dragged away by his dad. Afterward, through a lawyer, I filed for compensation from both Kevin and Sarah. Apparently, Sarah had been the family's beloved darling. Her parents doted on her. Even after what she'd done, they might have been willing to cover her mess with money. But after the disgrace she brought on their family on the wedding day, even her parents seemed to give up on her. Kevin's parents later told me that neither of them had any savings, and they had to borrow money to pay me the settlement. They were also kicked out of their family homes. Kevin, who had never lived alone before, began to reek of neglect and spiraled into paranoia. A mutual friend told me he quit his job saying, "Everyone at work hates me." Meanwhile, Sarah was couch surfing at different friends' places but kept bad-mouthing me wherever she went, making people distance themselves from her. Soon, she would have nowhere left to go. Now that our engagement was broken off, Kevin and Sarah could date openly, but I heard they spent most of their time blaming each other. Kevin and Sarah's misery wasn't anyone else's fault. It was their own doing. Time passed after the chaos, and I was finally living in peace again. My life is over. I still felt sad sometimes when I thought about how my dream wedding had crumbled.
What are you talking about?
My mom smacked me on the back.
30's still young. Sure, if you just sit at home moping, your life will feel over. But if you step outside, you'll find new happiness everywhere.
Where is it, though?
Well, the top of Mount Whitney, or maybe the Sahara Desert.
That's way too far.
Really? Let's go together.
We both burst into laughter. My mom was right, and my happiness had to be out there somewhere. She suggested we go to a resort trip this weekend. Maybe she just wanted an excuse to travel with me.
No matter where you go,
or what mistakes you make, you'll always have a home to come back to.
My mom murmured this softly as she started packing for the trip. She was always strong and dependable. It hit me then. I was still being protected by my mom. I haven't given up on my dream of marriage. I'll build my happy family, and I'll become a mom as amazing as mine,